Hey everyone. Sorry I've been AWOL for so long. Life has been lifing and not always so well. I've had to make some decisions lately and they've been kind of rough. So I decided that I would do a podcast on why it is so difficult to change, and not in terms of making decisions, but in terms of actually changing behaviors. So, why is it so difficult to change? Well, one reason is that change takes time, and we are definitely a society of instant gratification. We tend to wait until entire seasons of shows are out and then we binge them all at once. We kind of expect everything now. I mean, we order things that are going to be here overnight. 2 day shipping is the norm. If we have to wait longer than that, we get impatient. And change is not something that you can hurry. In fact, change that happens quickly is often temporary. We don't deal with setbacks well. We blame ourselves, we blame others. We have problems regulating our emotions when we have setbacks. We find it very difficult to get back on track. A fear of failure is huge. What if I try and fail? Well, what if you try and you don't? Change requires us to go outside of our comfort zone, which can make us feel really vulnerable. And vulnerability is really uncomfortable. Most people do not like to show people vulnerability. And so they kind of do whatever they can to not feel it. And change is an extremely vulnerable thing. Our beliefs about ourselves hold a lot of power. If you believe that your behavior makes up who you are, for example, it's going to be really hard to change it. For example, if you're a people pleaser, you've most likely learned that people pleasing makes you a nice person. You're a nice person because you always help people and you like being a nice person. So when you start learning to set boundaries, you're going to feel like you're being mean because your behavior is going against what you think you are. I could go into an entire episode on this, but the easiest way that I can explain this is that you are a person too. And if you aren't going to give yourself what you're giving everyone else, you're not being a nice person. You're being a doormat. When we change, we grieve the old us. We are letting go of something that has made up a huge part of who we are for a really long time. There may be a grieving process that goes along with that. And if you don't acknowledge that and you don't grieve that, you may find that it's easier to go back to it than it is to change it. Families can really try to interfere with change because changes by one person can disrupt the entire family. Dysfunctional groups work because there is a balance to the dysfunction. And if one person starts to get healthy, they disrupt that balance. And believe me, no one else in that group likes it. You're disrupting that balance and you're making everyone else look at their dysfunction. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients that have started to get healthy. And as soon as they did, the rest of their family told them that therapy was making them worse and they needed to stop going. Change often comes with a lot more responsibilities and often more work. Not only do we have to learn something new, but then we also have to take on these new responsibilities, and it can really be exhausting. If you want to get healthier, you may have to start cooking more. If you want to start getting healthier emotionally, you actually have to start putting into place the things that you're learning in therapy. These things can be really difficult. We also have a fear of what change is going to do to the relationships that you have. So when you start setting boundaries with your friends or your significant other, how is that going to change your relationships? Are you going to be able to keep your friends? Are you going to be able to keep your significant other? Is that person no longer going to like you or going to want to be with you? Those are really legitimate fears. Changes in one area of your life may lead to problems in other areas of your life. If you use work as a way to escape from your emotional difficulties and you're trying to find a better work-life balance, that may mean that you end up with less money. You may end up having to move if you come to the realization that you are in a very unhealthy relationship. You may find that putting better coping skills into place leaves you with not as much free time as you had before. So, not every change is going to leave you with some of the good things that you had prior to making the change. If we are forced to change, it won't last. If we change for external reasons, like if we change for another person, those things tend to not last. We have to change because we decide internally that we are not happy, or we decide internally that we are not healthy, and we have to make that decision to change. That's the only way that it's going to work. But the biggest reason, and I mean by far the biggest reason that change is so difficult, is because the brain prefers efficiency. Behaviors are literally hardwired into the brain. And in order to make changes, we have to rewire our brain. And that takes a lot of neurological energy. When we're using our brain power for other things, like when things get emotional, when things get really busy, and a lot of things are going on at once, it's very hard for our brain to put extra effort into changing behaviors. It's easier to stick with what is familiar. I kind of use the analogy of if you've ever known somebody that English was not their first language. And when things get very stressful for them, or when there's a lot of things going on, sometimes they will lapse into whatever their first language is because that is what's more comfortable. That's what's more familiar. And that's exactly what happens when we try to change behaviors. When things get very busy, very stressful, very whatever, we tend to lapse back into our first behavior, if you will, because that tends to be more comfortable. Not only does the brain like efficiency, but the brain also likes stability. So when we try to change behaviors, the brain sees that as instability. So when we actually try to change our behaviors, the brain will push the body into a fight or flight response because it sees it as a threat. So it can cause fear, it can cause stress, anxiety, it can cause frustration, and it can cause feelings of helplessness. And all of those things are so uncomfortable and so distressing that it makes us want to go back to stability, which is old behavior. And that can make it exceedingly difficult to change our behaviors. When we talk about changing behavior successfully, there's actually 6 stages to change, and I'm not going to go through all of them. But the one thing that I want you to understand in these stages is that one of those stages is relapse, like we talked about. It's very easy to go back to old behaviors, but you have to understand that relapse is normal. It should be acknowledged, and it should be seen as a learning opportunity rather than as failure. You need to be flexible. You need to be self-compassionate. You need to be curious. You need to problem solve so that you can get back to a healthier behavior. What is it that caused you to go back to the other behavior? Was there a trigger? Was there a specific situation? Were there other things that were going on in your life that prevented you from engaging in the new behavior when you got into a certain situation? You have to be able to look at your inability to engage in the new behavior from a learning standpoint rather than from a failure standpoint. If you wait for motivation to change, it's not going to happen. Motivation does not cause action. Action causes motivation. So small changes or small successes actually cause motivation. Motivation then makes you want to take more action, which then causes more motivation. But if you're waiting for motivation to strike before you change, it's not going to happen. You have to push yourself to take action before you're motivated to do so. That's the only way that it's going to happen. So, how do we make changes that last? We have to focus on identity and not outcomes. Instead of, I want to learn how to set boundaries, your goal should be, I want to be a person who values myself as much as I value other people. Instead of, I want to lose weight, your goal should be, I want to be a healthier person. Instead of, I want to stop fighting with my significant other, your goal should be, I want to figure out how to self-regulate and learn better relationship skills. By focusing on your identity and not your goal, you don't stop once your goal is met, but you're going to continue with other behaviors that are going to align with the new identity that you want to have. You have to break change down into tiny steps. This allows change to be doable, and it allows for you to be able to see your progress. Don't make a goal that you're going to do something every day, because we all know that that's not going to happen. But make a goal that you will do something twice a week for 10 minutes. Or don't make a goal that you're going to drink 6 to 8 cups of water a day when you pretty much don't drink any now. Just make a goal that you're going to drink 1 bottle of water over the course of a day. Basically, just make a goal that you're going to do more than what you're doing right now. Gradually increase your behavior. Change your environment so that it supports your goal. Get healthy snacks. Schedule therapy sessions ahead of time. Use alarms or habit trackers. Whatever you can do to make your goals easier to achieve, do them. Self-compassion is necessary because you will slip. Figure out what triggered it and figure out what you can do to get back on track. Make sure that you reframe your thoughts. So instead of "I messed up," think "something interfered with my progress, so let me figure out what it was so it doesn't happen again." Instead of "why is this so easy for everybody else but me?" think "what are other people doing that I'm not?" Or "my journey doesn't have to look like everyone else's." Understand that change is not linear. Some days change is going to be joyful and you're going to feel like you're on track. And other days change is going to feel like a battle and it's going to feel messy and you're going to feel like you're going backwards. And this is all normal. The goal is for there to be forward progress over time. And as long as that's happening, you're good. And if you have ever gone to therapy, you will know this. Therapy, when you first start going, can feel like a dam has broken and everything bad is coming out. But that's the only way that you're going to move forward. There's a few things that you have to remember about change. Change is hard for everyone. And that's not to minimize what you go through when you try to change a behavior, but it is to let you know that everyone finds it difficult and you're not the only one that's struggling. You are not failing. You are learning. Slow change is real change. Fast change, like I said, most likely to be temporary. Support makes things easier. Not only is having a good support system going to be great for helping you problem solve if you tend to take a couple backward steps, but it also holds you accountable for the changes you're making, holds you accountable when you want to give up, makes it a little bit easier for you to not. Even small, minuscule, tiny little changes matter. A drop of water may not seem like much, but if you put enough of them together, you get an ocean. Why don't most people change? And I mean the vast majority, okay? People are scared of accountability. People don't want to have to face themselves. Change requires you to let go of blame and take personal responsibility for the way that you move through the world. And a lot of people, they don't want to do that. Many of us create our identity based on a story of the external. What has happened to us, who we spend time with, what we wear, how we look, what we do for a living, rather than who we are at the core. Change does not fit into that external story because it makes us change the core of who we are. We lose comfort in predictability, and these are two of the most soothing things that we have. Some people honestly don't see a problem. They don't see a problem with their behavior. And if they don't see a problem, they're not ever going to change. People are most likely to do what benefits them, and change often doesn't benefit them. It benefits other people. People have often never been held accountable, and so they don't see a reason to change. A lot of people think that they can change themselves. And I'm going to address that for a moment. They say, well, I can do it on my own. And I'm like, okay, but if you're 20 or 30 or 40 years old and you haven't been able to do it yet, chances are you're not going to. Okay. So that's kind of like me saying, I really want to speak Russian, so I can do it on my own. I'm just going to wake up tomorrow morning and I'm going to be able to speak Russian. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. If you want to learn a skill, you have to learn that skill That's why it's called a skill. You have to go to somebody who can teach you how to do something that you don't know how to do. Okay. So if it's communication skills, if it's relationship skills, if it's self-regulation skills, if it's coping skills for mood disorder, whatever it is. And there are people who actually teach those skills. They're called therapists. And I'm going to tell you, if behavioral changes were easy, every single one of us would floss twice a day and eat our 6 servings of fruits and vegetables and exercise our 150 minutes a week. We don't. We don't do those things because change is hard. It is incredibly hard. So when people tell you that they can do something on their own, I always say, if you could, you would have. And they doubt that talking to somebody will help. Well, I have a whole lot of clients that will tell you different. A lot of people believe that if someone loves them enough, they will change for them. And I have to tell you, unfortunately, that's absolutely not true. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with them. And remember what I said, if they could have done it, they would have already done it. And if we change for external reasons, it doesn't last. They have to change for internal reasons. And if they would have changed for internal reasons, they would have done it before you. People are not going to change for you. And if they do, it's going to be very temporary and you're going to be very disappointed. So what have we learned from all this? Well, we've learned that if you've ever decided to become a completely new person on a Monday morning and you somehow find yourself eating snacks on the couch by Tuesday night, well, congratulations. You are completely normal. Change is hard because your brain is basically that friend who insists, but we've always done it this way, even when this way isn't working out so well. Our brains are built to save energy, which is great when you're remembering how to drive home from work, but it's not so great when we're trying to start exercising or stop procrastinating or resist buying yet another planner that is definitely going to transform your life this time. But your brain loves routines. It sees change and it says, yeah, that sounds like work. How about we don't? The encouraging part is that your brain isn't stubborn forever. It's surprisingly trainable. It prefers negotiations over ultimatums. Small changes repeated over time eventually become the new normal, even if your brain complains the entire way like a toddler who missed nap time. So be patient with yourself. Celebrate the tiny victories, laugh at the setbacks, and remember that progress isn't ruined just because you've had that one off day or an off week or even an off month. You're not starting over. You're just collecting more data on what works. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep being curious, keep trying. And even if your brain starts demanding the comfort of old habits, politely remind it that it has survived every software update so far. It may spin that little loading wheel for a while, but eventually it'll reboot, and hopefully with fewer bugs. I hope you learned something new. I hope you enjoyed your time with me today. Hit all the buttons, get notified of new content. I promise it will be more regular than it has been in the past, I don't know, so many weeks. Be safe, take care of yourself, but most importantly, keep it weird.